Hello, everybody. In this brief video, we will review the dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway, or the DCML pathway, which carries information of light touch, vibration, and proprioception from the body. We will discuss the pathways for pain from the body and sensory perception from the face separately. Let's start with sensory information originating from the body. As we've learned, sensory perception starts with activation of a somatosensory receptor. There are different receptors for light touch and vibration. They're called cutaneous mechanoreceptors. And for proprioception, these are called muscle proprioceptors. But they all follow the same pathway from the spinal cord all the way to the cerebral cortex. This is called the dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway. All sensory receptor axons for this pathway enter the spinal cord through the dorsal root, forming a sensory nerve. This nerve carries all sensory information from a specific dermatome. If this is not clear to you, please review the concept of dermatome for the next class, because it is essential for the lesion detection work we are going to do. Once a sensory nerve enters the spinal cord through the dorsal root, it immediately ascends up the spinal cord through the dorsal column. It does so on the ipsilateral side, meaning the same side of the body as the dermatome it represents. Now, let's shift from the spinal view to a view of the whole pathway. I like this illustration because it contains all the major sensory pathways in one figure. Let's follow the entire dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway now. After the primary sensory neuron has entered the spinal cord, through the dorsal root, it ascends through the dorsal column to the medulla. Here, in the medulla, the primary sensory neuron terminates before it synapses again with the second somatosensory neuron. The dorsal column tract is divided into two fiber tracts, the cuneate fasciculus and the crassal fasciculus. The crassal fasciculus carries axons from the lower extremities, and the cuneate fasciculus carries axons from the upper body. The way I keep them apart is by imagining dancing, where you need graceful leg movement carried by the crassal fasciculus. In the medulla, a brainstem structure, the crassal fasciculus terminates in the nucleus gracilis, and the cuneate fasciculus terminates in the nucleus cuneatus. This is easy to remember. The next neuron in this pathway, the secondary somatosensory neuron, takes the sensory information from the medulla here in the brainstem to the thalamus, right here. Very importantly, this neuron crosses to the other side on the level of the medulla. It decussates from the ipsilateral to the dermatome to the contralateral to the dermatome. After decussation, it ascends the spinal cord through the medial lemniscus tract, all the way into the VPL nucleus of the thalamus, the ventral posterolateral nucleus of the thalamus. The secondary sensory neuron terminates in the VPL nucleus of the thalamus. It synapses there with the tertiary neuron, which ascends further into the cerebral cortex, more specifically the postcentral gyrus, aka the primary somatosensory cortex. From the thalamus, the information is carried in a somatotopic organization through the posterior limb of the internal capsule to the primary somatosensory cortex. In the somatosensory cortex, the information arrives in somatotopic regions, a concept that we'll discuss in detail during the next lecture. So, this summarizes the essential information on the dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway, carrying light touch, vibration, and proprioception from the body to the cerebral cortex. Thank you for your attention.